if someone like Elon is against working remotely or a new way of working, how do you expect that to be embraced by other people? So your idea looks very first world. So the question would be like, Kenya, what are you trying to achieve here? And when you think about the future of work, which jobs do you see springing up in the future, and which ones do you see disappearing?
So
Ekonene. Episode 551. Tukisema like, subscribe, hit the notification button, tell a friend to tell a friend. And today we have the founder of SparkShift, and his name is Tom Kegode.
That's me.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Kegode. Kegode sounds like such an African name. Yeah. Where's
That's the heritage.
Yeah.
So my grandparents from Nakuru.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a Luya boy. So
Okay,
I want to
okay.
say hello to all of my Luya people out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so from Kenya, but I live in Britain, so I'm half British, half Kenyan.
Okay.
And on this trip, I'm staying with my sister Laura. And I was particularly wanting to come back to Kenya to reconnect with my roots. So that's why I'm doing this trip. And actually, there's been an opportunity for me to explore Nairobi as well, because I spent a lot of time in Nakuru. But actually, this is the first time I'm getting to explore Nairobi and get under the skin.
Okay, and then I have to ask you like a quick Shang question. What does Gode mean in Shang?
Gode. Me, I'm still learning, you know. So you're going to tell me.
Gode actually means marijuana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are like, okay,
Interesting.
Yeah, so but that's like the street name.
I'll
for
remember that.
Marijuana. So yeah, but so I want us to talk about. So let's start with SparkShift.
Yeah.
What's SparkShift all about?
So SparkShift is something that I set up. I'd spent a long time working in a large bank in the UK. So,
Okay.
and my work had started from the counter, from the front line, serving customers, and then moving through into leadership positions across regional patches.
Okay.
Then I moved into to innovation. So that was when I got particularly interested in helping leaders and teams to shape new ways of working that's going to make them more effective and more innovative in the future.
Okay.
So that was my journey, and then into effectively HR. So I've been in the human resources team for the last 5 years throughout the pandemic, because we redesigned ways of working, ways of operating, team structures and dynamics to be fit for when we emerged from the pandemic. So so after that, I feel, you know, I want innovation. I want to help more people than just within one organization. So actually, I set up SparkShift to do consulting based on helping leaders and teams to be more effective. So primarily, it's around those future work practices, ways of working, structures, but also sensing some of the trends on a global level around what we are seeing. The dynamics change when we've got 5 generations in the workforce, and when we have teams trying to figure out what the impact of technology and AI is going to mean for their organizations and the way that they structure teams. Because when you have teams that are working with tech, what does the culture need to be? So lots of workplace culture, lots of leadership development. So that's what I do through SparkShift. I help leaders and teams to be more effective and design work that works better.
Okay. So the mission is disrupt the norm, design the new. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the single most critical problem that you're trying to solve for these leaders, serve for the leaders and organizations today? So, like, why do you think we need to disrupt the norm?
So because I think when we looked at some of the challenges that came with the pandemic, we were able to innovate faster than we ever would have thought before. Okay. People then thought, okay, it's going to slow down, but actually it's continuing on multiple fronts. So that disruption continues. We see climate disruption, we see geopolitics, we see the technology uprising. So actually, there's almost a kind of a multi-crisis, or there's a multi-way of disruption happening right across many different sectors, many different areas. And I think the most prominent one that I'm seeing when I'm speaking to leaders across different industries at the moment is how to embed technology and AI into their teams and how they can use that. not just as a way of reducing costs, but as a way of becoming more effective as organizations. So that's definitely one of them. The other one that I also find that is becoming more and more of interest to leaders is how they can create multi-generational workforces.
Okay.
So when you think about some of the people that are CEOs that are, have got quite far, very and on the old ways of working, and they're quite happy, and then you've got a new uprising of younger generations coming in. We've got 5 generations in the workforce for the first time ever, all with very different experiences, expectations, what they want from work. So actually, these CEOs need to think about how they are designing the work that's going to engage that next population of talent to come through. So those are 2 of the biggest ones. I think that multi-generational one is very interesting, because some of the trends that I'm seeing is, there are people that are choosing to opt out of leadership positions. So that then has a knock-on impact for your talent pipeline. So when you're thinking about the leaders of the future, but then I've got people that are in, the Gen Z category, some millennials that are saying, do you know what? I don't want to be a boss. This concept of conscious unbossing, where they decide they don't want to be a boss, they want to be an artisan in their trade. So you need to be able to design a future of work that enables people to have those get the different things that they want from their career.
Okay, but now you have people like Elon Musk, who insists on people working from the office. And Elon is taken as the most successful businessman in the world.
Yeah.
So if someone like Elon is against working remotely or a new way of working, how do you expect that to be embraced by other people?
It's very tricky, right? So because when you see there's a level of influence that are had by people such as him, where actually they are influencing a whole organization, and they're then starting to influence wider populations and people wider than that. I think it's what's the interesting thing about hybrid working, and the hybrid concept was something which when I was working for the bank that I was working for in the UK, I designed our hybrid working approach. We had 65,000 colleagues.
Okay.
We needed to figure out what that meant, because there was different teams. Some people were serving customers on the counter every day. We had knowledge workers that were doing work on their laptops. They can do it from anywhere. And then we had people that were sort of fully remote. So I think what's really important is that you think about the characteristics that are in your workforce in particular, because that will then determine how you can shape what the type of work looks like. I think when you have people that are saying everyone back in the office all the time, I think people have now had a taste of what the experience and the flexibility that they get with a hybrid experience, and actually will start to ask why and really start to open up that conversation. So one of the things that I've definitely seen where there has been sort of a more strict return to the office 5 days a week is very hard to police. So people just don't adhere. They don't adhere to it. Is one of the things I've seen. But then obviously you have some organizations which will take a harder stance, and it's almost you're out the door if you're not. So it's a challenge, because the job market at the moment, people are very, wanting to make sure that they have security within their jobs. So it can go either way. People will either vote with their feet, or they will reluctantly go back in. But it's a very difficult one to measure. Personally, though, I think the office has a very important place.
Okay.
And for me, that's why part of my trip this time, I really wanted to get out and explore. I've been working from Ikigai in Westlands.
Yes.
And it's just the Lavington when I went to, actually, but it's just that kind of concept of being able to do your work. You can connect with different people, different communities. And part of my trip this time, like I'm only here for a short period of time. I've been here, it will be 10 days. I'm flying back to London tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's the first of many, right? Because I'm like, I need to come and explore here more. But actually it means that I can go, if I can work and I can go in, I can make different connections in places like Ikigai, co-working spaces. So I can really understand the place that I'm in. So whenever I go anywhere, I'll always go and sort of explore, being based in Europe, it's easy to go to Barcelona and go to Lisbon. I'll always go and check out a co-working space. And even in February, I'm going to Thailand. So I'm going to be like, my curiosity just lends me to say, let me go and see what it's like to work in this place.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's a real way you can connect with the community and start to make those longer term connections.
Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go back to Lloyds Banking Group.
Yeah.
Yes. So you worked here for 15 years.
Yeah.
Started out as what? Ended up as what?
Yeah.
This 15 years. Yeah.
So 16 in years in total, right?
16. Okay.
And I started as a cashier.
Okay.
So I went in on the counter. This is a very interesting story, right? So my grandmother, my guku, she worked in a bank. So that was that. So she was very proud when I started that I was going to go and work for a bank. So I started at the bottom cashiering, and I then moved through many roles across the branch network, serving customers. So branch manager, as a bank manager. When I was 20 years old, I moved into being a bank manager. Yeah.
At
20 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started when I was 19, and I was very quick, and I was just thinking, how can I create better experiences for customers? And then I quickly moved through the ranks. So that by the time I was 20,
1 year. How do you grow that fast in 1 year? Like, what sort of bank is that?
You just have to. For me, I found I just put myself in the position where I said yes. And I said, let me try this. Let me show you how I can do this.
Okay.
And actually, that was where I started, finding recommendations for customers, building relationships as a kind of relationship manager. And then I really discovered that I love working and leading and coaching people. So, and that's what took me quite quickly into this branch manager role. And then I did that for, I think it was 3 years I was doing that.
Okay.
And then I moved into more regional roles. So I was a young guy walking around in the region, and so what would I have been, 23, and going into other people's branches and talking about how they're serving customers, helping them to do that. Get some funny looks, right, when you're looking that young. But actually it was good for me because it meant that I could share the work that I'd done in the branches that I looked after, and then I could help others to do the same, all in the service of creating a great experience for customers. So that was my time in the branch network, and then I moved to sort of the head office type roles, which were kind of a bit more behind the scenes because I wanted to get involved, and that's where I moved into innovation. So I spent 5 years in innovation, leading an innovation culture team, which our purpose was to make innovation everyone's job.
So I see that is written as people innovation. What does that mean?
So people innovation is making HR better. So how do we think about the people experience? How do we think about how we can transform that experience to make it faster, more efficient, easier, simpler? So that was kind of the work that I was doing within that people innovation space, was all trying to introduce new concepts and also connect people within the organization to what's going on in the wider world.
Okay.
So during that time was the time when fintech was uprising, for the first time.
Okay.
And that's when it was interesting because I decided to come to Kenya. My first time I came to Kenya since I was very small was 2014, and then I see M-Pesa, and I'm like, hold on, we are ahead here already when it comes to mobile money, mobile bank. And so I was bringing those stories back into the UK and telling those stories in the branch in the banking sector to say, look, this is happening. How do we prepare for that? So it was a lot of kind of bringing the outside in, external, and that's what I did within the innovation space. And then I moved into HR for real. So the people and places team, which is the team that I was in until I left. So I moved from innovation, and then for the last 5 years, I've been in people and places, where I've been working both on, like I said, I mentioned the kind of the response and how we build back better post-pandemic for ways of working and the future ways of working. So I did a lot of the kind of the office designs of the future and working with the teams on how we kind of create what we need for that. And then most recently, I've been working with the Chief People and Places Officer to look at how, in the light of kind of the uprising of technology, how do we help transform the organization? Because the Lloyds, as I left it, has been on a transformation journey to be more efficient, more tech enabled, simpler organization, but also growing. So the work I was doing with her was around how do we transform the organization, number one. Number two, how do we transform the people experience? So the everyday experiences that our colleagues and our workers have when they interface with HR, how do we make that more seamless? And then the final one was how do we transform the HR function as a whole, the people and places team. So that was the work I've done, and I've just left in the last 3 weeks. I left that role.
Oh, 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the work lab, like, what's that work lab?
So the work lab concept is, this is the way I've always designed change. And I've always, because I believe when you are creating change in organizations, you have key players. So I see the key players are, first of all, your leaders that are in the organization that are wanting change to happen. And then you've also got this collection of people that are in the grassroots that are change makers and catalysts for making change happen. I've often found when I've been delivering change in organizations that the challenge is where it gets stuck in the middle, and there's a layer of middle management that are maybe not, or try the blockers. But actually, if you can bring together the leaders and the grassroots together around a common problem and take them on a journey to solve that problem, then you can have a real impact. So I set up my work lab concept is based around that. So it's working with a leader to identify what is the key challenge we're looking to solve here, then agreeing that problem, and then we start to think about how we fall in love with the problem, right? So how can we fall in love with this problem, find ways to solve it, but bring together a hand-picked squad of people, maybe 6 or 7 people, and with a couple of those leaders, and then we take them on a journey. So the journey goes from a work lab perspective, 3 phases. First phase, identify. And that's where we start to think about all of the things that are, are we solving? Is this a real problem we're solving? What's the impact this problem is having on people? How we can start to pull some information and data and research to then move to the next phase. So that's like identify, where you get the customer colleague research and understand the problem. Second phase, co-create. That's when we do the kind of product building, designing, whiteboarding, thinking about how we can create something that will solve this problem. That's second phase. Identify, co-create. Third phase, activation. And this is about getting ready on this kind of activation pathway. So I will work with a team for these leaders for a defined period of time. Sometimes the typical model, because I like to do it at pace. A lot of the times people are saying, it'll take so long to do this. I'm like, we can do this at pace if we bring the right people together. So 30 days, I can deliver change and set people on an activation pathway within 30 days using this method. And that's kind of activation phase is the part where I will work with them around, what is this? How do we activate this? Whether that is on socials, whether that is on, our internal messaging, our internal platforms, and then set them on the activation pathway. And the point that I leave that project is when they are activation day.
Okay.
So that's the work lab method. But the work lab method, as well as being a 30-day sprint, which is what I would call that typical one, you can flex that. So I could do a phase. I've just designed something for some leaders that want to talk about collaboration, and I go on an experience for that. I designed it. I've used the method over 1 day. So they go through identify in the morning, co-create mid-morning, afternoon activation, and they have a plan.
Okay.
So it's moldable based on those kind of phases.
So your idea looks very first world. So the question would be like, Kenya, what are you trying to achieve here?
So for me, I think what's very interesting for me is when I look at the Kenya and Africa as a continent.
Yes.
The opportunity, particularly when we look at the demographics. So some of the studies that I've been doing around the kind of the growth of the generations that will be coming through in terms of, by 2050, we will have 25% of the global population will be African. So that's significant growth, significant skills, significant talent. So I'm really interested in the opportunity that Africa as a continent has. For one of the reasons why I wanted to reconnect with my Kenyan roots, right? And actually, I see myself spending more time in Nairobi, meeting more people, because also there's that kind of this kind of pace and energy and optimism that I feel in Nairobi in particular. I mean, I haven't explored further, but I'm thinking, how can I create Nairobi as a base and explore more? I think also, one of the things I've seen a lot of this kind of concept of digital nomadism, where people will go and work from somewhere for a period of time. And like I said, I like to do that. And I thought, well, let me just go and see what that's like here. So actually, I think, people are going off to places like Lisbon, places like Bali, and deciding I'm going to go and work and set up a business from there. I'm actually like, let me explore Africa. I think that could be the next place because people can then really connect with, I feel like that people don't necessarily will visit, but there's so much that they can learn from visiting and being part of this, part of this. So, yeah, I mean, I at the moment I'm looking just to kind of explore, make connections, but with a future of almost how can I spend more time, because I think we start to see that kind of people will start to realize that actually there's huge opportunity, and it's when I think about Africa, right? For me, it's become even more important for me to connect with my African roots recently. Particularly because of the state of Britain at the moment. It's not a welcoming place. I've lived there my whole life, right? And actually now we're seeing this kind of rise of far right thinking and behaviors and flags going up everywhere. The England flag, not in a nice way, in a way that's made to make you feel like actually, you don't belong here. And then I'm like, well, where do I go? So it's I felt it's even more important for me. How do I make sure that I've got places that I can feel connected with, and that I'm part of, which is why it's kind of opened the door up to me exploring even more and even more.
So normally you work with companies, yes? So here in Kenya, are you thinking of, have you tried to approach a few companies and show them the future? This is the future of work.
So there's a few companies that I've had some conversations with, particularly companies that I've made connections with prior. So some companies that people that are from my network that I know. There's a couple of banks that I've done some work with, other banks, and it's kind of, it's very early stages for me. I'm still in that kind of exploratory phase, first of all, but actually started to have those conversations around, what is the presence here. And how is there an opportunity to, because I think the good thing about the method that I use is that it's quite flexible. There's lots of opportunity for it to be done virtually. So, started to, and this trip has been about kind of, it's been a fast trip, but it's been starting to make those connections to then have longer term discussions. We can, the benefits of hybrid is like we can connect in person, have a coffee, have a chat, and then we can actually we can follow up and even start some of that work in a virtual way as well, which has been really good.
So I see you have the friendly disruptor approaches. So you've been described as a friendly disruptor. So how do you balance that? The need for radical change and innovation. And still the need for organization stability, because you don't want to rock the boat too much, yes? And you want the people who are already there to also buy the whole concept and be fully on board. And if a company is well established, there's always the reasoning that if it's not broke, don't fix it, yes?
Exactly.
So how do you do that tricky? Because it's a very tricky balance, yes? Of making sure everything works.
So it is always a challenge to do that, and you're always going to have people across the spectrum who are really excited about change, and then you have the people that are kind of on the laggard scale where I don't see any point in changing this. The way that I think it's about creating a sense of urgency first of all, particularly with the leaders, because if it's leaders that have, and it's understanding the real problem that they are looking to solve, what's the thing that's making them most worried, then you can start to paint the picture of, okay, what's the risk if we don't do this. So part of that, I've got my work lab concept. I've also got, I'm an executive coach as well. So I work with senior leaders and executives to help them kind of navigate some of those. And I guess kind of that's where I found a lot of that comes down to the questioning. Understanding the real problem and the impact if we don't make a change. The other thing that you've got to do is really bring out and bring together. You've got to really bring out and bring together the people that are your early adopters, and make them become advocates. So if you can start to build a bit of a movement within an organization. So one of the things that I did at Lloyds was I started a group of what I called work heroes, first of all. So started them from nothing, grew those to 200, and as I left, they're at 7,000 people across a 65,000 organization, with the idea being that if you get 10% of the organization, roughly 10% of the organization, spending 10% of their time unblocking things and making change happen, then you're going to have a significant change when it comes to the culture. And that culture being the systems of work, the behaviors that you see, that you encourage, tolerate, or discourage.
Okay.
And the systems and the symbols. So how do you make symbolic things happen with this population of people so that people see, so you're sending a flare up, right? And the flare saying, things are changing around here. And then when you do that, you create a bit of a movement that means that people get the FOMO. So when people start to get the FOMO and seeing everyone else is on board on the journey. So it's really that kind of, it's almost a Pied Piper effect when you can start to create change, get people feeling excited about it, and then telling the story of that change. And then that's how you move the organization forward. There's always going to be people that don't want that change to happen. That's when you need to have really honest conversations around, this is the organization we have been in the past. This is the organization we're going to be in the future. And that organization is not going to be for everybody. And actually, if it's not for you, that's absolutely fine. So, it's having honest conversations, and sometimes those are hard to do and are not well received. But actually, when you're thinking about what an organization needs to be, and particularly when we talk about productivity,
yes,
you cannot afford to carry dead weight or people that are not on that journey, don't believe in what it is, the cause you're doing. So it can be some difficult conversations, but that's how you will move and get an effective organization.
Okay. And I'm saying this respectfully, but it seems like you're the sort of guy who, if I see showing up in our organization, I'll be like, damn, that asshole is around.
Yes.
Like I won't be happy to see you because you're coming to disrupt.
Yeah.
People love a certain form of familiarity and So do you understand why then a lot of people will be like, I don't need this guy around our company?
Yes. Yeah. It happens. And it's almost, I've had that when I've gone into teams before, right? When people, you go in and you start saying, what about this? What about this? And people look at you and they're like, who is this guy? Especially often when quite a young guy as well come in, and I'm wearing my Adidas track top. Yeah. And I'm walking into the executives, the C suite with my baseball cap on, and people are looking at me like, what? Why are you here?
Yeah.
And for me, so that's always been a way that I've built. So my brand has always been quite, depending on where I am.
Yes.
When I'm in Lloyds, I was wearing green, Adidas green. And I walk in there and I'd have a baseball cap on. People are like, why do you always wear that? So people will know me when I walk in. What that means is that I have to almost work even harder and know my stuff when I'm going in and having those conversations with people, because they're already expecting you to be, they don't want you to succeed. So it can be harder at first, but that's why the friendly part of Disruptor is so important for me.
Okay.
So actually where I'll go in very curious and ask questions. I'll be like, try and make, and always I've thought, how can we make work more fun? So it's always go in with a very positive outlook into every interaction that I go to. But actually operating as a friend is that, I'm not saying disrupt because of this. I'm saying, well, what if we made it so that this was even better and in a positive way? And that's kind of the way that I've found has been the best way of approaching to bring people on board and bring people on the journey. But yeah, there's still definitely times when I walk in and they think, who the hell is this guy? But yeah, it's a balance, and it's going on the journey with people and knowing that sometimes when you first arrive, people are thinking, what's going on here? But then again, that's why I think it's really important to get those advocates. If you can find people that are like-minded, that want to create change and want to have fun whilst they're doing it, then you've almost got a little posse of people that can start that movement and then spread it out across somewhere. But that's not to say that you don't want to engage the people that are the doubters. And actually sometimes you can have real value in converting someone that is a negative doubter into someone that is an advocate by listening to them and actually asking them the right questions around why they feel that way, what could make that experience even better for them. And then you've got a really powerful story where you've been able to turn someone from a detractor into a promoter of the change you're trying to create. So that it's important to make sure that you create the space and environment for all kinds of people, because everyone's going to be part of that journey. So it's important you create that space and environment for them all.
Okay. And then your SparkShift looks to be more company focused than individual focused.
So from the work that I typically do, spans across three things really, right? So when I think about what sits under SparkShift, the work lab concept, which is working with organizations and consulting based on ways of working, as we've kind of talked about. The other part is more the one-to-one approach. That's where I work with leaders and teams from a coaching perspective. So as an executive coach, I will work with them around specific challenges that they have. That could be challenges within their own career. Quite often it's challenges around driving change within their organization. So I will work with a senior leader of a supermarket who is trying to create change amongst their leadership team. And I will one-to-one work with them so that they can have an opportunity, a space to work through the challenges and the opportunities that they have currently, as in a space that's away from the organization. So it's a completely private conversation, but I can co-ideate with them. Then they'll go back in and start driving that change and do that. So that's the kind of the more one-to-one approach. And then the other thing that I do, which is the third part, is the facilitation. So hosting, emceeing, and for different events and activities in the workplace that happen. And so events have been a big part of what I've done up until now as well. Yeah, because I think those are quite big activation moments. Those are the parts where you can really kind of see, feel, and smell, taste the culture when you're in those kind of big events where everyone comes together and has a collective moment. So those are the kind of the three things. So the more individual approach is when I'm working on a one-to-one basis from a coaching perspective.
Ekonene, nimeinterrupt show kukuremind juu ya Lemfi. Kama uko US ama Canada na unataka kutuma do Kenya, register kwa Lemfi ukitumia promo code Ekonene. Hii itakuguarantee $20 cashback on your first $100 transaction. Alafu pia time una register, make sure umetick the 2 checkboxes za notifications ndio ukireceive info about amazing offers through newsletters. Na pia usijali, Lemfi hawatumagi hizi letters za, yani unajua like ma messages za kipumbavu. Pia usisahau, every time una transact $50 and above una earn points. Na the more una transact, the more points you earn and you can redeem them as cash ile time unatuma pesa. Alafu pia kitu nanibamba kabisa ni saizi ukitumia Lemfi mzabaki umelipa pay bills na till numbers directly. That means mzabaki umehandle bills za maparo wako ukiwa hizo maside za States ama maside za Canada. Alafu pia wewe mwenyewe as a Lemfi user baki umetafuta ile button imeandikwa get USD $20, ubaki umeinvite mabeste zako, na ukiinvite mabeste zako on their first $100 transaction unapata pesa ngapi? $20 cashback. So unangoja nini? Baki umechangamka, ingia Lemfi. Lemfi, international payments for everyone. Ekonene. Because the reason I'm asking is, let's say most people listen to podcasts as individuals. So what's that, the Ekonene fan listening right now? What like can he learn from this apart from being scared of the future? Apart from being scared for the future, like what else would they learn from you, for example?
So I think there's ideas. So one of the best places to connect with me is both on my socials, on Instagram and on LinkedIn. I share videos quite frequently around different ways of working, things that people can try, ideas that people can test. The thing for an individual is that everyone as an individual has the potential to be a leader. You don't have to have a leadership position to be a leader. You can lead in your community. You can lead amongst your team. You can even lead in ideation and ideas. So all it takes, and I've so much of what I built has been from listening to podcasts. Is one of the ways that I kind of get. I like to listen, and I go for a walk, and then I think, right, how can I bring that in, and how can I then build that into something, particularly around ways of working. So I featured on quite a few of those from testing the concept. So what I would say to listeners is, if you see a way of doing something different, test it, measure it, and create a way of doing it in a friendly way, because that's how you can shift change and shift the needle in organizations. So it's thinking about what you can, almost a bit of a prompt for people to think about. Let me try this and let me see what happens. But very important is to make sure that you measure and say, so you're doing this, and let's see what was the situation before, what was the situation afterwards. Then that way you can have if you're someone that really wants to change an organization, you can show, look, I did an experiment. I'm always framed as an experiment. I did this experiment because I think we could do something even better for customers. So I looked at the customers that I'm making this up, but I looked at the customer satisfaction, And I thought, if we just sometimes these are really simple things, right? If we move the chairs in the waiting area just a little bit closer so that people can see and have eye contact with the people that will be about to serve them, so that they can just say, I'm with you, I'm waiting, and then measure what the customer interaction scores and the customer feedback is. Those are small changes that people can do that actually can have a significant impact and then shape behavior. So I did this when I was in a branch, and we were calling customers in the morning, 9 to 10, to say, can you come for an appointment? I then thought, hold on a minute, 9 to 10 is when the bank opens.
Yes.
The busiest time. The queue's out the door, and I have all of my advisors calling customers that are not in there to say, come in later in the week. So I said, I'm not going to do that. And I said, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to send all of the people that would be calling, 5 people, out into the banking hall to meet customers as they come in, have those conversations. And they booked more appointments by doing that because they were having the face-to-face conversation than they were when they were calling and no one was answering.
Oh.
So then we rolled that out across the region, the whole region. So it was almost, you do the calls, but at a different time of the day, which probably when it's going to be less busy. So those are the kind of experiments that anyone can spot in their ways of working, in their organization. I think this is the work that I do. How can I be more efficient? So it's just being curious, and it's just having that kind of desire to think, I won't settle for this. I think there must be a better way. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. And what's up with the file?
So this is very interesting. So I mentioned my grandmother worked in a bank, and so Guku was in.
Where was the bank? Here or there?
Here.
Oh, okay.
Nakuru. So that's why I said my Guku was very proud. I'm a Guku's boy, yeah. So she was very proud when I said I was working for a bank, because no one else had gone into banking. And then as my career, and we talked a little bit about my career and how it had gone, and this is where I found this to be very, very interesting, because I had started in banking, and then I sort of moved my way through banking into human resources and HR leadership development.
Okay.
What was very interesting is my Guga was human resources. So I hadn't even really realized this. So I've gone on the journey for both of their career paths in the same organization to now. And then this trip, I've been looking at this, which is his Department of Management Studies from 1963.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been looking through this, I'm going through this file, and I'm thinking, hold on, there's so many things that are relevant today. There was one I was looking at, I can't remember exactly the page on here, but it was talking about performance management and how you manage performance within organizations. And these things hold true today, right? There's so much that's there. So it was just, for me, this trip has been very interesting because I've been able to connect on a deeper level with my grandparents, who are now no longer with us.
Okay.
But actually, I'm seeing the crossover, which I never even knew was happening, to how I found. So it's been very interesting for me to explore this and start getting under the skin of this, because it kind of shows that, from 1963 to 2025,
63 years,
yeah. So when we think about the impact, and actually some of the things that, when you're thinking about developing leaders, that will always be something that is necessary. So for me, that it just further in confirms, the things that I'm doing are the things that will live on.
Okay.
In a different world. When we have that kind of rising of technology, we have all the kind of things that are going on. You still need to create an environment where leaders can lead and have the tools to look after and encourage, develop, and manage the performance of their people.
And when you think about the future of work, which jobs do you see springing up in the future, and which ones do you see disappearing?
So I think what we'll see is there will be a significant change when it comes to jobs, sort of repetitive jobs, which can be transactional style task jobs. We'll start to see less of those, because those can be kind of automated much faster. The kind of, you have to think about what are the things that humans can do that machines can't do right now. That right now is important because we still will have to see what happens. But when I think about AI as the conversation around artificial intelligence is not a new one. It's been around since the 50s, 60s, right? When we first start to see some of those initial artificial intelligence, then the journey through machine learning, machine intelligence, and all of that. But then this kind of generative AI. We're now in a phase where we are. I call it the Nokia 3210 era of AI, right? So you remember when we had Nokia 3210s and we get a brand new phone, it was like, wow, it's a brand new phone. And then as the technology developed, we ended up with iPhones and the Samsungs and the software update. And actually the phone itself doesn't look too different, but the software behind it is updating and you don't notice so much. But I think we're in the 3210 era where every release is significant.
Yes.
It's growing exponentially. And almost we don't know. So it's a very interesting phase. What I think is also quite interesting is the impact that it's having on some of the jobs that were the hot jobs 5 years ago. Everyone needs to be a coder. Yeah. And actually when it's like, okay, now perhaps I need to understand how I use the technology to support the coding that I do. So actually learning the code is not as quite as high a priority as it would have been 5 years ago, because those things you can use the machine as your co-pilot to do some of that. I think the differentiator when it comes to what humans can do and what machines can do. Humans, judgment, empathy, a really kind of that kind of ethical approach. So I think we'll start to see a significant uplift in AI ethical advice around actually using AI in an ethical way. Who's keeping an eye on that? We've already seen kind of like prompt engineering and that kind of people that are really starting to look after how we develop those prompts. But I think ethics will be a significant one that will be interesting to see. Anything that is what is at risk. I think there's, like I mentioned, some of those repetitive tasks, but effectively the concept of a knowledge worker, right? This is almost what we're seeing with the technology, what we're seeing with the with the impact the generative AI is having on workforces, workplaces, is not too dissimilar to what we saw in the Industrial Revolution, and then when robots started working in factories. So when you look at the roles that are probably the most safe roles at the moment, fairly practical roles, plumbing, things where people have to, that's further away at this time than for people that are in the space of knowledge work. Knowledge work is the one that is being disrupted right now. So it's the time for people when it would have been the blue collar workers that were in the factories worrying about their jobs. Actually, it's the people like that are lawyers, people that are working using knowledge work, using and some of the tech. And what's really interesting with the tech as well is when you see people that have a very strong tech background, and then you see them being very resistant to using AI and the concept of AI. So it's all going to be the success will be on how you partner and how you think about creating super teams that are formed of people that are able to work with the technology, manage agents and agentic AI to be able to complete tasks. So yeah, you may have less humans in that environment, but the humans will be doing different skills. So hopefully what that will mean is that you will take away the mundane tasks that machines can do and humans don't particularly like to do, but then you're able to create more time for people to do those human things, the judgment, the empathy, making calls. But it's important to have the human in the loop. As soon as you let go of having the human in the loop, you're starting to lose the control. So it'll just mean that the format of teams will be very different, but that also has an impact on the culture, the culture within that team, because nobody knows what the culture needs to be like when you've got humans and robots working together, and humans and tech. So it's a very sort of I think a very exciting time, but obviously it's going to be it's a time of uncertainty as well. It's a time full of uncertainty because this is a new way of building a type of work that is going to be very different to the work before.
Because that has reminded me, like this week there was the story that Amazon plans to replace a significant number of human jobs with robots, with leaked documents suggesting a goal to replace up to 600,000 US jobs by 2033. You understand why this is going to cause, this is not good disruption.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that what we need to see with this, so it's very difficult to in the times that we live in. It's very difficult to provide job certainty or job stability in terms of because of the fact that we don't know what the jobs of the future need to be. But what organizations need to make sure that they do is help their people build their skills from an employability perspective. So actually, when we're thinking about, and this is why it's so important to map out what those future skills should look like, because if you can have an idea of what some of those future skills that will be important from a human perspective over the a time horizon of 3 to 5 years, you can help to develop. You can never guarantee a job for somebody,
Yes.
but you can help. You can guarantee to help them with building the skills that they need for the future through systems and mechanisms. So that it's in those messaging, it's always going to be very critical as to and what will kind of make or break the reputation, I think, of the organization will be the way that they do those cuts or those changes. How are they supporting? We saw some really interesting examples during during COVID, when people had to do this. Airbnb was a really interesting example of how they set up an alumni network. They were actively saying, look, we've got these great people that are leaving our organization with these great skills. We are setting up a pool, and then actually we saw quite a lot of them being recruited into roles in other organizations that needed those skills. So I think the more of that kind of behavior that can be seen is going to be really, really critical in this phase, when actually you can't guarantee people a job, but you can help them be more employable.
Okay. So if you have to go back to so there's this thing, hybrid work, yes? So you talk about creating a destination office and a workplace pool. What does that mean?
So, destination office. I believe, particularly when it comes to hybrid work, that there is a huge value being in the office. I talk about the office. This is going to test my memory, but I talk about the office of having 5 core purposes. Yeah. First one, meeting on purpose, where we go in and we've got those key meetings, activities that we're doing, things together. Second one, meeting by accident. So it's the casual bumping into someone. Oh, I've not seen you in ages. The opportunities that come from those bumping into each other, meeting by accident. Third one is workshopping activities. So there's always times when you feel you get in a room, you get so much more done. You're whiteboarding everything. Everything is it seems to happen faster, and you're breakneck speed, and you've made decisions. So workshopping is the third critical one.
Yes.
Fourth critical one is collective learning. So there's something about learning in a collective environment when you're all having those moments together, those experiences together, that really stick. So I think the collective learning is important. So the more times you can create space for that. And then the fifth one, team cohesion, is simply being part of a team together, bonding together, and feeling more part of a team. So those are the 5 purposes of real reasons for the office. Destination office needs to be a place that enables those things to happen. So the destination office needs to have everything. It needs to make you want to be like, oh yes, this is my office day today. I'm really excited to go into the office and spend time in there. So you do that by thinking about formats. The way that you design the space for multiple purposes. So, you've got great coffee is always a good place to start, right? Coffee shops are where you make coffee connections, but actually people might do a little touchdown and do a little bit of work. You have quiet spaces for people to do that focused work. You've got big collaboration spaces. So, you can really get together and do that kind of those collective experiential learning, or events as well. And those kind of events are really important. And then you've got spaces to work as well. So the destination office needs to have a dynamic mix of those spaces, as well as kind of outside spaces for people to go and really kind of use it in a way that that is flexible throughout their day. So you don't go and sit at a desk like we probably used to do. You sit at a desk for the whole day. You may move to different parts of that building for different purposes. And that is what gives you the things that you don't get when you're working purely from home. because you've got the kind of an opportunity to go and use a dynamic range of spaces. So that's the destination office concept, having a range of areas that you can go to and almost move nomadically throughout the day as well to kind of experience different things, different working environments. Events and then that's kind of, you have the destination office. And by the way, this was something that during my time at Lloyds, we redesigned the key hubs right across the United Kingdom, also set up a hub in India as well. And that was kind of really to make those places the best offices. So actually people want to go to them rather than having somewhere that's a bit sort of shabby and not fit for the future of work. So create the destination office. Once you've got the destination office, you then have the opportunity to create that pull. So what that pull looks like is the experience you have in the workplace. What big events, moments, signature moments that signal the culture within that organization and help people to feel connected to that organization and part of something. I'll give you an example. One of the ones that I did beginning of 2025 was a 2-day event in the flagship building in central London, where we brought together 70 of the colleagues from across the organization that had been doing amazing work for customers, to celebrate the customer centricity, to celebrate the work that they've done. Now, some of these people have been going, they were setting up their own financial literacy programs and going into schools in their local area to help them build financial literacy. Some of them were redesigning processes to make things happen quicker for customers. There was somebody, a lady that I met that was going into prisons to help people that were on their journey to rehabilitation and into the community, to help them think about, how do I transition from this to being financially independent. We brought them together for 2 days in the central building in London, and made them feel really special right throughout that. But we also broadcast the final award ceremony to the whole organization live. So we were celebrating people that we had confetti cannons. We had a real opportunity for people that they don't normally go into head office environments. They said we took them down to London. We put them up in a hotel for 2 days. We had them an experience when they went on a boat down the River Thames. We also gave them lots of upskilling and skilling around telling their stories. And then they were presented with awards at the end. That is a pull, and that is something that is, their pictures are now all across our buildings, or I say our because it's only 3 weeks, all across the Lloyds Banking Group buildings of the 70 customer heroes. So that was the first time that had been done. Now they'll do that again next year. So those are the kind of things where it's a real moment where everyone is part and sees the impact that they have, and that's how you create the pull.
Okay. And then culture as a strategy. So you emphasize that the best transformations happen when fresh thinking meets action. Yes. Mm-hmm. So can you share like an example of that? This what you just talked about, where like now you had these people get an experience to show up and like see what happens in the head office. Would you call that fresh thinking? No.
So I guess that's kind of that's more recognition. I would describe that as. I think the part where fresh thinking comes is where you create the environment for people to have real blue sky ideas and thinking. So lots of people will think about. So what I learned in my time in innovation is it's always a lot easier to work back from something that seems so far in the future, an idea that seems so radical and so future focused. It's a lot easier to work back from that than if you start thinking small and you only think slightly ahead. So you've got to try and create that the environments, whether that's through kind of workshop or experience design, to enable people to have that room to think bigger. So I often talk about the kind of the dream state. Like, what's the dream that we really want as a collective here? And then once we think about what that dream is, it's easier to then think about, well, what are the steps of action we need to take between where we are now to get to that point? And to get to that point, that North Star, that dream state could be much further out. But actually, if we're making progress towards those and we can start to chart what that looks like, that's how you get that combination. So small actions, but that they are kind of signature things on the journey to where we need to get to. Because when you think about how we see things now, we don't know what's coming around the corner. It's very difficult to think about planning in a straight line for time horizons to say, in 5 years we're going to do this, in 10 years we're going to do that. The concept of a timeline has now had to change to almost this concept of a time cone. So actually, when you think about this is where we are. We need to plan for 1, 2, 3, 4 scenarios. This is the happiest path. This is what we want to get to. But we also need to make sure if something did happen, if another global pandemic came along, or if we went to war, how would we have to respond, and how would we have to think? So you have to keep all those options open, and that's where you can almost have that kind of guiding North Star dream state. And then you are thinking, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? And then that's where the action is. So by doing that, you can start to have multiple plans. And when you are disrupted, you've hedged your bets a little bit. You're never going to know, but almost you're planning for multiple futures. And that's the way we just need to think now, because the pace of change, the rise of technology means we need to be open to all things that may happen.
Okay. Because I think that's what I wanted to ask you. Like the world keeps changing. Like how are we supposed to plan for the future?
Yeah.
Because like even what we just talked about, where Amazon is talking about 600,000 jobs. And when you think about that, I think it was here in Kenya, it was announced on Friday that they want to start trying different strategies for tax collection. And then some guys said they're going to use AI to tax people. Understand? So that means that at some point they'll be like, you know what, AI is more efficient than humans. AI can't be corrupted, humans can be corrupted. So what do we do here? Let's get rid of these humans. So it looks like the future is robotic. And it's going to get more robotic. What do you think? At some point you'll have to motivate robots. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's where it can become really interesting, because it will definitely become more robotic. It's so difficult to see what the unintended consequences of that happening are right now. The impact of what will happen, and it links back to something I mentioned earlier around the ethics. Yeah. So AI ethics is I think going to be really, really important, and how organizations will embed that, because ethical introduction of AI is positive. Yeah. And if there's some kind of way of creating that kind of structure to control and structure to think about, is this the right thing for a robot to be doing? You can think of things where that people are using AI for many different purposes, whether that's kind of to be an AI therapist. You see people using AI as building relationships and partnerships with an AI as a girlfriend or whatever, right? So actually there's things where you think, hold on, this doesn't feel like a good use case here, but without that kind of ethical guidance and control, there's a real risk, I think, of it being implemented in places where it shouldn't be. So that's going to be a challenge, definitely, that people need to face into. So yeah, I think it's a very difficult one to predict, because those controls are not there at the moment, and I guess some forward-thinking organizations are going to want to put those in. But then you're also going to have people that are thinking, I don't want this to be regulated, because they can see the power that it has if it is unregulated, and if there is no kind of ethical control within it. So it will be interesting to see the responses, particularly from governments, and how they choose to sort of do that. But effectively at the moment, it's open to all, which can be scary.
Okay. So as we finish up, still, I'd want to ask you, as much as the future is unpredictable, it's still predictable to a certain level. So what do you believe most companies are not prepared for that's going to happen in the next few years? because it's unpredictable, but we can still see we can still see there's something coming. Because if we look at like a country like China, for example, we can see like public transportation, they don't use drivers anymore. If you look at other cities, even I'm sure in London they're still using drivers. Yes, because I was in Cape Town a few weeks ago and I saw they were using drivers. But when I look at China, all those are driverless, and you know that the driverless ones are prone to less accidents than humans. So what sort of things do you think companies are not prepared for, like when you think about the future?
So I think one of the themes that I mentioned earlier is this kind of the changing demographics in particular. So I think there's from the things that you mentioned earlier, there's going to be definitely going to be the changes when it comes to some of that technology. It will just take longer in some places for driverless cars to come. They will be coming.
Yes.
So how do those kind of transport hubs start to think about that? Definitely is for real. I think when it comes to demographics and something I mentioned earlier around the kind of changing expectations of different generations and what they want from work, I don't believe that organizations are ready or quite know how to navigate that conversation across generation, which is leading to kind of this problem where we will have a reduced talent pipeline moving into leadership roles. So we need to think about how we can create those opportunities for multi-generational exchange for mutual benefit. So I talk about this concept of wisdom exchange. We need to flip from talking about generational divides to generational exchanges. So there's so much that people can learn from working intergenerationally. And then the other one. So I talked about the generations. The other one that I think is which I talked to you earlier a little bit around was the skills in Africa. When I look at organizations across the globe and actually what we're starting to see in terms of that generations that are coming through, organizations need to be thinking, what's my Africa strategy? How am I going to be tapped into this kind of wealth of skills of the future? Whether those are kind of large corporates that are here, where there's opportunities for places in the global north to learn from places in the global south. Those things, I think, lots of kind of Western organizations just haven't got their eye on the ball. And actually, in Africa, we're like, okay, fine, we'll at some point I think there'll be an eye-opening moment where people think, oh, hold on a minute, what am I doing to be involved? And how can I make sure that we're part of this and we feel connected? And then hopefully what that will then do is bring a more globally connected community of people together, which enable opportunities to flow across the globe, right? So it's not kind of this Western and Western divide to different parts of the globe. Actually, we're learning from some of the things that we're seeing coming out of the global South, Africa as a continent. And I think organizations and leaders they haven't got their eye on the ball when it comes to that right now.
Okay. So if someone is listening to the podcast and they have like either they're businessmen or they lead an organization, yes, what's this like that advice that you'd want them to hear as they begin to start their journey in? Let me put it like this: SparkShift, where they want to, now change a few things and disrupt what they've been doing and make it more efficient. What's like that advice you'd give them?
So the advice that I would give is start small, experiment, but also create that space for being curious. So the biggest thing you can do is be curious about how you can make your business, your organization, your teams more effective. The curiosity will lead you then to explore the future of work and what that might look like and what that might mean for your industry. So the first thing is curiosity. It's all about curiosity. That's where it starts and that's where ideas come from. And then I guess it's kind of, do that in a way like I described, the kind of friendly, disruptive way. So don't wait to get started. I always say, look, I'd ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Yeah, when I'm in, I'm gonna go and do something, but I always do it for good intent. So you need to have good intent, curiosity, and that ability to go out and really challenge the status quo. And then and tell the story as you do it as well. Find ways of telling that story. Like I mentioned, people can connect with me on LinkedIn. As to see, I share a lot of video content on LinkedIn. In the workplace and some of the work that I'm doing with teams and individuals. And again on Instagram as well as another place. But that is really important. Tell the story, and then people start to see that story as well. The best way you can do innovation is to do that in a way that is out in the open, because then you're inspiring other people to also move on that journey as well.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying you're going back to the UK. That's on Sunday.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, how long before you come back to Kenya?
Well, how long is a piece of string? Hopefully quick. Quick.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be coming back again in the end of October next year. But I'm planning to spend more time. I want to spend time meeting and connecting with people that are really trying to do this kind of work in Kenya and in Africa. Like I said, my sister Laura runs the Ndovu Backpackers Hostel, which is where I stay when I'm here. Is my base, and I can get out to places and go and work from different places. But what I want to try and do is spend more time back in Kenya, and then also with a view of spending more time exploring other parts of Africa as well. I feel like I've scratched the surface. So Moaf, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So where is next for me to go and explore in Africa?
Whoa, Africa, it's tricky. I don't know, because it depends with, are you trying to look at a country that is ahead of Kenya or behind Kenya? That's what I'd look at, because Kenya, of course, you have very good internet access. I think we've started understanding the whole concept of working from home. I've had a lot of people talk about working from home and being flexible. They have office days and days that they work from home. So I'd say in East Africa, I'd feel like we are the leaders in that. Even Eastern Africa, even past Ethiopia, I'd say we are way ahead. But then if we zoom out a little, and if you're looking for countries that are a little bit behind, Uganda, I feel like Uganda has more opportunities than Kenya, if that makes sense, because Uganda is a little bit behind. And Rwanda looks to be more open to ideas. Rwanda looks more open to ideas. Tanzania right now, I think because of the elections, has left a really bad feeling in a lot of people's mouths. So it's going to take a lot of time before Tanzania gets that stain. And Tanzania also, you don't know if you're safe, because now the government is so paranoid. They think everyone is trying to work to bring them down. So I'd not put Tanzania there. So I'd say the place that I think has opportunities right now would be Uganda, would be the first one. But they have an election in January, so you don't know how that's going to go. So Rwanda, I think Rwanda stands out then. I think Rwanda is more stable. It's a dictatorship, but it's more stable. It's more like the Rwandese are used to the Rwandese way of doing things. So I'd say that. Other countries that I think that maybe because they are way ahead, so maybe the opportunities are less, I'd say South Africa. But also, if you're coming from the UK, if these ideas are working in the UK, then they'd work in South Africa. You understand? Because South Africa is next level.
Because you said you were there the other day.
Yeah. Nigeria is Nigeria. Either you'll have the best time or the worst time. I think Nigeria always has that. There's always that image of scams and what. So you might go in and have the best deal. Or you might go in there and then someone just scams you. And so Nigeria, I think there's always that risk. So I'd say East Africa, I see a lot of opportunities in East Africa. Especially Rwanda. I think Rwanda, because it's growing fast and the president is thinking of ways to keep himself popular. So I'd say Rwanda. And I'd say I'd wait for February to see how the Ugandan election goes. Will it be as violent as the Tanzanian? If it's not violent, then I think Uganda would be next. Uganda would be next. And of course Kenya, the best thing about Kenya is always trying to be in the front line. So that also creates opportunities. And then when it comes to interconnectivity, Kenya has like some of the best, in quotes, internet in Africa. So yeah, Kenya would be up there still.
Yeah, so I'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Before you know it, I'll be back here again.
Okay, man, and you're welcome. We're trying to see what the future holds. I think the best thing about the internet is it's made the whole world
absolutely
such a small place, and you can work from anywhere. So yeah. I think maybe next time we'll explore how individuals can benefit in this whole thing. Because I think today we explored more on the organization side. But yeah, thank you for your time.
I've loved having the conversation, Waf, so thank you so much.
Yeah. So kama kawaida vile susema, like, subscribe, hit the notification button, tell a friend. Tukimalizia tukisema ekonene.